step in the project is to stitch the Rhodes diamonds that are going to outline where the motif stitches are. There are 8 canvas threads between each point. So when you're stitching, make sure that you have 8 canvas threads between each point, and you'll see that all of the points line up with each other. This is symmetrical. You can put any of the motifs in any of the squares, but I'm going to demonstrate the stitches in the diamond areas where I have them in the book. So the first one that we're going to work on is in the upper left, and it's the Chilly hollow stitch. Now, to anchor the stitch, you first need to do some establishing stitches. And in the book, I tell you to use number 5 pearl cotton. You can anchor in the Rhodes diamonds on the underneath side, because this is going to be completely covered up and you won't be able to see the carry thread. So the anchor stitches frame the center hole. So here's the center hole. Right there. And it's easy to find. You just draw with your needle and find the center. And so these anchoring stitches are going to frame the center hole. And so the first thing you have to do is to provide a good anchor. You're going to stitch each stitch twice. Now, this stitch does not have to be really tight, and in fact it's going to distort some as you stitch the actual Chilly hollow stitch. And so you don't have to have a really tight tension on this one. You could, if you wanted to, use 2 strands of your number 5 pearl cotton. However, it's going to be very difficult to get it into the needle, and so it's just as quick to go ahead and just make each stitch twice in the same holes, so that you're framing the center point. Okay, there's our anchor. And now we're ready for the rest of the stitch. Okay, I have my threads anchored for the next step. I wanted to mention one thing about the length. I give recommended lengths of thread in the instruction books. And rather than getting out your tape measure all the time, just use your stretcher bars as an estimation of the length of thread that you need. So for this one, I recommended 40 inches. So if you go 3 times your stretcher bars, that's about 42. It should be enough. I am not stitching the Chilly hollow stitch with the metallic threads that are specified in the book because it's easier to see the pearl cottons. And these are just stitch demonstrations. This is not the actual project, but you will want to use the threads that are listed in the book. So the Chilly hollow stitch, you're going to start in the shared hole with the point of the diamond. You slide under the anchor. And then you enter the canvas again in the shared hole. And you just fill at the sides. This is a very easy stitch, and you don't really have to count very much with this one. But it makes a nice complement to the double fan double that we'll be doing later. And you'll see that I'm coming up and going down in adjacent holes. So you're going to come up right next to where the last stitch started. You're going to go under the anchor, and you'll go down beside where the last stitch ended. So what you're doing is you're just making a little angled stitch through the anchor until you fill up all the sides. You can try to fiddle with it and make sure all of your threads are laying very straight next to each other, but it really doesn't make all that much difference. Okay, and this is the last stitch with this color on this side. It also does not matter which color you start with because you're going to see the equal amount of each color. Now, when I'm working with 2 needles, one thing that I always do is I will bring this needle up where I need it next. Where I'm going to need it next is right there. And now I'll park it out of the way on top of the canvas. This to me is better than bringing the thread up in a random place because you might stitch over it on the back and then you have to unstitch a lot of things. And I also don't like to just let the thread dangle on the back because then again you might stitch over it and then wind up with a big mess. So now I'm ready for my second color, which I've already anchored. And this one is just going to come up and go down just like the other one, except now we're going through this anchor. I'm also using a thinner thread than what I called for in the pattern because it will help you to see the development of the stitch better than if I'm using a thicker thread. With this stitch, all of your carry threads are going to be along the Rhodes border. And so if you want to, make sure when you're bringing your needle up that you're not piercing that thread. I don't think it makes a great deal of difference, but you may prefer to not get into those threads. Yes, and I get knots too. I hate to say that this is the easiest stitch that we're going to do for this whole project, but it could very well be the easiest stitch because you don't really have to count anything. You know where your needle's going. It only enters the canvas and exits the canvas along the shared holes with the Rhodes stitch border. And you can see that I'm pretty much covering up the anchor thread that I used. Okay, now the next place that I'll need this is right there. So I'll bring it up and park it out of the way. So now we'll do this side and we're going to go through this part of the anchor. And you'll notice that it's really easy to see where you're supposed to go because you're coming up here and you're going down right in the center of the area. So you really don't even need to look at your diagram very much, and I would encourage you to get out of your diagram as much as you can for every stitch. The reason for that is the more you take your focus off of your canvas, the easier it is to make mistakes, to lose your count, to, well, you just get distracted every time your eyes are going back and forth from your canvas to your book. So I try to explain how a stitch develops so that you can have confidence that you don't need to continually look at the book. It's a lot easier to stitch that way and a lot faster. I've had several questions from class members about color schemes and how to select your own color scheme. And I've been giving pretty much the same advice. The advice that I give is find a color that you really, really like. If you don't like the color, you won't stitch the project. Okay, now this finishes what I need to do with this thread, so I'm going to bring it up over here and I'll anchor it later. So now I'm ready to finish it. And I'll talk a little bit more about color while we're finishing this stitch. Find a color that you really like, that really, I call it singing to you. Different colors sing to us at different times, but for me, my favorite color is always blue. And so you'll notice that I'm stitching with blue. I could have picked any color out of my stash to do this stitch demonstration, but I thought, let's do blue. And I've paired it with a neutral. Now, in my experience, most any color will go with most any other color. And this is a great project to experiment with color on because it's a very limited palette. You're using 5 shades of one color in your cotton flosses, or for the aqua and black color scheme, you're using 2 overdyed threads. And so you could even do that, find 2 overdyed threads that have basically the same colors in them, one lighter and one darker. Or just use 1 overdyed thread. Threadworks has a lot of overdyed cottons that are wonderful with a lot of different colors within them that make it really easy to find a color palette. Weeks Dye Works is another one that has a lot of color variation. Gentle Art sampler threads are more subtle and don't usually have color combinations in them, but Weeks and Threadworks would be good choices if you wanted to use an overdyed thread. So once you have your main color picked, then you need to pick a contrast color. And that's basically it. It can be a shade of a different, a lighter shade of the color that you've selected. It could be a neutral like black, white, brown, or gray. And there we have the Chilly Hollow stitch. And you can see that I have the same number, the equal portions of each thread showing. And so you can decide, you know, I want the blue up here, here, and here, and I want the brown here and here. You get to decide how you want it to be. So that's the Chilly Hollow stitch.